Hello, Forrest. How are you? Today I'd like to continue the discussion from last week's video about journey through time. We looked at some compelling examples from important literature, mainly, which suggests that somewhere in the correct search area there may be a line along which some of the stories from The Thrill of the Chase could be arranged consecutively along a line in chronological order, where the stories are themselves associated with elements of the search area, things that can be found, geographical features or objects, and the like. So this time, what I would like to do is to try to see where that leads us in terms of figuring out how to incorporate that into one's larger self. So the first thing to consider is, if there is such a geographical location, some trail, some path, some line, along which we can find objects that are somehow associated with the story, where would such a line start? Where would it end? What is the scale of it? Does the line connect where Warm Waters halt to the treasure chest or to the blaze, or maybe from Home of Brown to the treasure chest or to the blaze, or could it be from the blaze to the treasure, or from some other part, something else mentioned in the poem to some other location mentioned in the poem? Well, for some indication as to what that could be, we can look at the first stanza of the poem itself, which I'll read out. As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret where, and hint of riches new and old. So let's look at a few of the words in that stanza. So the first one I want to talk about is hint. So, and hint of riches new and old. Well, this line, could hint refer to the hints that are in the book? Could this line and could this stanza be indicating to us what the role of the hints are that we have seen so far from The Thrill of the Chase? And when we say, when you say, and hint of riches new and old refer to time, sequencing in time as well, the newer and the older. And is it really riches that are new and old, or could it be the hints that are new and old, and hint of riches new and old? This could be a reference to an ordering of hints along a line in a location, the secret where, from old to new or new to old, in terms of their chronological order. I think that the first stanza is guidance to tell us about how hints can be placed on the map. So, what can we tell from this? What can we tell about the nature of the secret location, secret where? As I have gone alone in there suggests that it is something of small scale, possibly enclosed. Because otherwise, why the word in? There refers to a location. You have gone alone, it's secluded, and it's something that you can go into, which suggests that it's not a very large area, relatively small, relatively enclosed. So if it's of this scale, and it suggests to me that it's not going to encompass the entire path from where warm waters halt all the way through to the treasure, unless you, except perhaps if searchers believe that all these locations are in one small compact area. For many of us, it may be just a small area that encompasses not much more than the actual location of the chest plus perhaps the blaze. In any case, whatever we might believe as to how the clues of the poem fit onto the map, I think that in the first stanza you're hinting that it's a relatively enclosed and small-scale location. So if it involves the blaze and the chest, and if it does provide some sort of path or some sort of trail or some sort of embedding in the search area of the of story elements from your book arranged in a chronological order, then finding these associations can serve as a form of confirmation that this area is the right area. Just if I would say that the more information of this type that can be associated with the location, the stronger the confirmation. It's not the same sort of confirmation that you get when you take a cipher and crack a cipher, or other forms of encoding, or breaking encryption, that sort of thing. It's not going to give you a sort of aha moment where all the information and the answer comes tumbling out and you're guaranteed that it's correct. I think that the more successful we are at mapping elements of the landscape onto this line or this path or this curve, this trail, the more successful we are at this, the more that we manage to do, the greater the confirmation we have. There are some warnings, though, that we should heed. One is that it requires a lot of imagination, which you mention in the book. You know, imagination is better than knowledge, the famous quote by Albert Einstein. So we do need to exercise our imagination in order to make these associations. But something else that we need to consider is that this same imagination can be our undoing if we do not also exercise sound judgment. You can imagine that there are many locations in the Rocky Mountains in which you can find enough objects, enough boulders, rocks, trees, grass, whatever, in the location where somebody with a very active, agile imagination could construct connections to elements in the story. Have been, without mentioning names, there have been many searchers who have created videos, vlogs, posted articles on websites, forums, and the like, who have given details where they have found elements of some of the stories and associated them with things that they found in search areas. So what this says to me is that we, as searchers with our imaginations, we are more than capable of making associations where associations were not intended by you. We need to exercise judgment. We need to have many associations, and we need to have good connections and a certain consistency in style. We need to solve this poem correctly also to find this location. We cannot just pick a random location and then try to hammer our interpretation onto the terrain that we find there. So once we find this location, we need to ensure that the fit between the stories and these locations is overwhelmingly strong before we can be confident that we have found the right spot. So what would it be like then to solve the poem correctly, to marry the clues to a map, to arrive at the right place, to go alone in there to the secret where? What would that experience be like? To go in there and to recognize the association between story elements and the objects in the landscape around us as we're standing alone in some relatively secluded place. It would be like entering a theater where a play is in progress, frozen, where the play has been constructed for an audience of one person, or maybe no people. If the treasure never went found, if the mystery were never solved, it would be as if you, as the playwright, would have gone and put on a theater production where the audience members never showed up. And even if somebody did show up, the first person to show up, the person to claim the chest, to find the treasure, it's as if you are writing this play for an audience of a single person. You can think of this also as sort of entering an art installation where you could wander around within this area looking at each piece, each object, each element would evoke a memory from one of the stories that you have put in your book. The interpretation of this would require learning how you associate. We would need to learn your language of analogies and metaphors. We would need to know how your imagination works, because a certain amount of imagination and artistic vigor, artistic vision would be needed to make these sorts of associations, and we would need to recognize and to duplicate that for ourselves in order to get the confirmations that you have left for us. I think what this, you may not agree with me, you may object to this, I don't know. But to me, this makes you the first master of an entirely new art form. Rather than taking materials and creating an object or a sculpture or a bronze or some statue to fit your imagination for other people to then look at, to interact with, and then to experience in their own way. What you've done is, I think, is you've wrapped your imaginative vision onto a landscape that you have chosen. You may have modified some elements of the landscape so as to better fit your vision. May or may not have done that. In this art form, you use the materials that you have found, and I think what makes this place very special is, I think, in your travels, you must have come across some location which was evoked some of your memories, which was special to you in that way. And I think the time that it took to prepare for the puzzle must have required, in preparing for the puzzle, I think you must have taken quite a bit of time in order to map your memories, your experiences, your life story onto the landscape that you found. If your secret where is an art canvas, who knows? Maybe when all is said and done and the treasure is found and it's valued and the area of the secret where is calculated, maybe it might come to $17 per square inch.